So I'm the Lena that Scott mentioned a couple of times. Very happy to be here, co-wrote the report together with him. And like Scott and probably many of you, I too have been trying to make sense of everything that's been going on around us as the industry has changed over the last couple of years. I've been in tech for 15 years, my career is 20 years old now, and I've also worked with many clients over the last couple of years who have a lot of questions about what does all of this actually mean? And I'm here for you today with a high-speed talk. So if you want to take photos of the slides, take them fast, but please take them, they're good slides. And I'm going to talk to you about how to deal with those changed roles that Scott already mentioned, how to lead your team through uncertain times, how to handle the hype, and how to rethink your role along the way. So we've got a lot to do. Let's get to it. I want to lead with some numbers. And the first number is 84%. 84% of leaders who responded to our report said that their roles changed. 63% had a wider scope, like more direct reports, more teams, more hands-on technical work, more strategy. And that's had some consequences, like this advanced engineer who says they're filling in for more positions at once. And I am pulling this qualitative data out of those 602 data points that Scott mentioned as well. Another engineering manager said they got assigned an entirely new role on top of their already demanding role. That might be something many of you have seen as well. Others started to code. Others said, had a slightly more common or slightly more exciting change, like this tech lead that reported, I have a slightly wider scope, but it's because I'm pushing for a staff engineering role. Good for them, good luck. Others dealt with other changes to their role, like things just deviating into, and I quote, complete chaos. And that was visible. And the interesting part was that on average, the roles of engineering managers didn't change that much, but that's the role changes mapped for each of the 411 engineering managers who responded to our survey. You can see at the bottom the things that they're doing less now, and at the top, the things that they're doing more of. And I just wanted to show this to you because it highlights what I know a lot of people have been feeling, that there are substantial shifts in how you spend your days. 28% of leaders reported that they spend at least 30% of their time differently. Now, those numbers might not sound too big, but 30% of their time, that's 1.5 days every week that you're doing something entirely different than before. And the picture looked very similar for managers of managers, by the way, which then also, of course, has consequences throughout the organization. Many leaders now work in really broad roles. And leaders, of course, both tech leads as well as people leads and managers, continue to be the glue and gaffer tape that holds organizations together and adjust as business needs change. And those business needs have changed a lot over the last couple of years. These very broad roles now mean that many leaders are responsible for people management, mentoring, and development, but also technical leadership, including strategy and decisions, and again, sometimes hands-on coding. Delivery management with some product and project management sprinkled in, and then, the hands-on work. All of that combined with very high expectations, reporting to hyper-busy managers who, again, also have more to do now, without a lot of training and support. We have a word for that in German, and I promise you it's not an insult. The German word is eierlegende Wollmilchsau. If you want to find me later to practice pronouncing in German, I'm very happy to be there for you. It literally translates to egg-laying wool milk pig. And this German idiom, we usually use it as a joke, by the way, and it describes the ideal of an imaginary hybrid livestock. By the way, if you Google this, the Wikipedia illustrations for this are hilarious. And this livestock combines the advantages of different types of animals into one. And we use it to describe a person, a thing, or a solution to a problem. And yes, it sounds like a complicated word, but this is actually used quite a lot in Germany. And this livestock seems to only have advantages, satisfy all needs and requirements. But exactly because of that, it's not real. And that's why I want to be very clear, those very broad roles that a lot of leaders are in right now, it is very, very difficult to honestly, most of the times, just impossible to do all of those things very well at all times without burning out. So that's where my first recommendation for you is coming in, and it goes to the point that David also mentioned earlier about saying things out loud. Get really good at managing up. You should especially make this a priority when there's a lot of things changing in your company, when your role is very broad or new, or when your team scope has changed. Or also if your manager isn't the greatest, or even if they are great, and you want to prepare for the unlikely chance that you might have a less great manager in the future. It's also really useful if you want to get your manager out of your business and stop them micromanaging you, or you just want to improve your one-on-ones with them. Managing up means you own your and your team's work, its progress, and you make that visible to your boss. You also understand and speak to your boss's needs, and you make sure that you're on the same page. A practical tool for doing this is, first of all, like you speak business. You frame things around, hey, the thing that we're proposing, here's what this means for our business, here's the impact that it's going to have, here's how it connects to our goals. The second thing that I recommend, and I've done this so many times myself, but also with a lot of leaders I work with, share information and context with your boss every week. Send them an update, figure out that some bosses don't read, that makes it a bit trickier, but many bosses at least read like either Slack messages, team messages, or email. Send something to them every week. Speak to, here's our progress on our goals. Here are the confidence levels. That also ties back to Sarah's talk earlier, which I really loved. Here are the risks that we're seeing. Here are the impediments. Here's how the team is doing. And also, here's what I'm prioritizing for the next week. Share that info actively with them, and then iterate with them over time. Like ask them, what's been useful, or what do you wish you'd known sooner? This is a really simple but really, really helpful tool, especially also because it creates a written record of what's going on. And again, managing up is one of the best tools that you can develop as a leader. I have a template for it at bit.ly/pushing information. I'll also have on the other slides, at the bottom right, there's a link to my newsletter. I'm going to be sending out all slides and additional content for it in the next couple of days. I just didn't manage to get it done before this. And remember, managing up, like also managing quote-unquote down, like working with your direct reports, it's a process. It's a continuous effort and investment that you need to do, but it's one that really pays off. Second topic, let's talk about teams. 48% of engineering managers have more direct reports. That also means you likely have less time for the people that you're working with than you did previously. And teams have changed in even more ways, like the tech lead reporting that their teams are even bigger than before. Others lost most of our teams, so the workload has tripled per individual. Others have a focus on shipping faster. We also heard from someone who said that there is a reduced focus on diversity and culture now that, quote-unquote, times are tough. And before talking about how to help teams, I do briefly want to sidetrack on this because it's something that is really important, especially in a talk about becoming a leader. We've all known that this "we are family" talk is not real. But the degree to which companies are invested in their staff, or at least afford their staff a basic level of respect, that's technically never been tied to budgets, but apparently it has been. Because smaller budgets and tighter markets have brought to light what many companies are really about. When suddenly talent scarcity wasn't as big an issue in many places, all of a sudden people development and career growth weren't a big focus anymore, no matter what the company values said. Investing in developers and investing in culture have always also been retention strategies. And now, with more talent on the market, it's been deprioritized. And in these times of tighter budgets, many companies have quietly, and in some cases less quietly, removed the people from people management. Now, I do believe, and I know, because I've done it and I've seen it, that it's possible to build workplaces that are treating the people on their teams and the users they serve with decency. But the space where companies are doing that has become much and much smaller over time. And that's where my second recommendation for you is coming in. Some tools to help you help your team navigate uncertainty. That's especially important when a lot has been going on and changing, or your team has been in reactive mode a lot, like a lot of big changes have happened around them and they've been able to do nothing about it. It's also really useful when your team scope has changed and they're in a less known business area now. A couple practical things for how you can do this. One part is connect your team to the big picture. Talk about this every week. Like when company changes are happening, what does this mean for us? What does this mean for the work that we're doing? What does this mean for every individual developer on your team? The second part I found really important is help them find agency again. A couple tools for this can be to work or revisit your team vision, mission. Or focus on how you work together as a team, like your processes, the rituals you use, how you collaborate, how you communicate. Or propose investments that are, again, tied to business impact. I know I'm saying the word business a lot today, but it's kind of part of the point. I also really love the circles of influence exercise. Has any of you done this before? Raise your hand. Nice, I see a couple people, so either approach them or Google this. There are a lot of really good tutorials on how to do it. I'll also send it out with the information I send about the talk in a couple of days. And the last bit is really important as well. Many companies, when they were in hypergrowth, like new opportunities for growth would just open up very regularly. It was very easy to grow people, grow their skills. In many companies that are now either smaller or aren't growing as fast, that's become much harder. And that also means that growth opportunities currently may be a bit less exciting than they used to be. So get creative, work with the people on your team to figure out how you can help them grow, and look at areas like, for example, quote-unquote soft skills, or help them grow in working with stakeholders. Help them get good at mentoring or focus on knowledge sharing. There are still a lot of areas where it's really valuable to develop those skills. Like engineers who can communicate really well are really awesome, even though it's a bit of a, again, maybe less exciting skill to learn for some. Topic number 3. I want to talk about how to handle the uncertainty for yourself. We heard from 39% of leaders that said they're more concerned about job security currently, and very understandably so. Some people have already been impacted by layoffs. Others are really struggling with finding new jobs. Being ghosted by companies is something that a lot of people told us about. Like, if you're hiring, don't do this. I know that none of you would, but figure out if your company is doing that to people, because it really sucks. We also heard from a lot of people that said they feel like there's a general trend away from their preferred role of engineering manager to more like tech leady roles. So there are fewer opportunities that feel like they suit for them. Or more increased expectations that managers are hands-on. Others said that they feel like they're shifting goalposts for performance reviews so that no one exceeds expectations and raises need not be given. Or someone who said that one of the difficult parts of finding a job is the question if the grass is actually greener somewhere else. Now, I have some sort of good news. On average, every line manager we heard from went through 3.96 of these large organizational changes that Scott also mentioned, like reorg, strategy change, layoffs. But that also means you're not alone in this. And that's my third recommendation: build community. I think today is a really good time to make this a priority, but it's also really helpful if you need a reality check, like those changes in performance reviews that someone mentioned. Like, is that just your company doing this, or others experiencing the same thing? It can also really help you move past the, is it me? Am I the drama, or is it somewhere else? Or is it actually issues in my organization? It can also really be valuable to feel less alone. Also check how green the grass on the other side actually is, and learn from those who came before you. I do briefly want to ask, who of you has been in tech for more than 5 years? Please raise your arm. Damn, that's a lot of people. Keep your arm up, please, if you've been in tech for more than 10 years. That is almost the same number, that's fantastic. And more than 15? Wow. Well, very glad you're still here. Thank you. You can put. Thank you for entertaining the brief exercise break with me as well. Appreciate that. There are a lot of people who have a lot of experience here. Find them, talk to them, learn from them. I have, just as an anecdote on this, I've been recently working with a client who's unfortunately been dealing with a lot of discrimination at work, which is awful. She's a manager and she's relatively new to the industry. And the thing that we talked about a lot is how there is a long history of discrimination, especially against members of underrepresented groups like her in this industry. And again, as much as I want those things not to be the case anymore, and I think we can all work towards that, it was also really reassuring for her to see that it's not just her, she's not alone in this. And it doesn't just have to be about those really awful examples, but a lot of the changes that we're dealing with, many of us are dealing with, and that's also something I hear from my coaching clients every day. So how you can do this? Host a dinner or a remote lunch or meetup in your area. I've done all of those things. It's a lot of fun. And you don't have to do it forever. Just once or twice, try it out. Listen to podcasts. I have one, it's called Leadership Confidential, where we have honest conversations about leadership. Or, again, make use of the fact that you already made the effort to drag yourself here. Join the roundtables later in the breaks. You can also join me at Speed Coaching, where we talk about leadership challenges and people get coaching or mentoring, or build your manager Voltron, which is also going to be an exercise today. And now I too want to talk about AI, because Scott already set the stage for that. We heard from a lot of leaders that their companies are already prioritizing a lot of AI topics specifically, like 30% with AI for customer use, 33% even for internal use. And a lot of company roadmaps currently look like this, sometimes even verbatim. And the thing is, that isn't exactly new. Like, it's something with AI today. But those many of you who've been in tech for 5, 10, 15 years or followed the industry for a while, you know that this isn't the first time. It used to be something with VR, something with NFTs, something with machine learning, something with the blockchain, something with crypto, something with social media, something with mobile phones, something with the internet, and something with maybe also personal computers. So the tech industry prides itself on innovation. And I don't want to just trash on all these technologies, even though it's fun to list them this way. But too often, it means that we follow hypes, trends, patterns, and go into extremes. Because the herd mentality in our industry is really strong. Because that concern about missing out on the next big thing is so real for many of us. And I get it, because I've been there. It's the next big thing, says your boss. You hear it's where all VC is going now. Your customers are asking for it, or will at least ask for it any day now, and your investors. Your competition is probably already on it. Your board is also asking about it, and your employees asking too. You will need to have it if you want to raise more money. Every conference has sessions about it. And I'm very well aware that the things that I'm saying here and the things that Scott and I wrote about in this report are part of this dynamic too. Like, I'm not free from it either. And while you wasted time thinking about it, your competitor already posted on LinkedIn that they're working on it. And oh, what is that sound? It's Slack. Your boss is asking when you'll ship it. Many companies forget that there's a spectrum between moving fast and breaking things, asking for forgiveness, not for permission, a sense of urgency, bias to action, and on the other side, never doing anything. I do know that many of you are concerned about this herd mentality. We heard about it in the survey even. People wrote about concerns like the environmental impact of cloud computing, how AI is sold as something much more than it is right now, the impact of biases and data that's used for training those AI models, all the hypes. But driven by fear of missing out, many companies frantically race after the next hype, and the next hype, and the next hype. And these races after the hype have come at a cost. This person shared that they're really concerned about organizations prioritizing shortcuts as quick win revenue generation, like Boeing on a smaller scale. That is horrifying. As an industry, we've been moving fast and breaking things for too long, and it shows. The tech industry has a long and terrible history of really negative impact on humanity at large. From poor user representation. Think back to the glorious days of Apple releasing their fitness tracker without menstruation tracking. But also examples like Cambridge Analytica misusing personal data from Facebook users, or racist face recognition that only recognizes the faces of white people. But also platforms that have contributed to the exploitation of workers, as well as gentrification in cities. The rampant spread of misinformation that is, again, in election season, a real issue. And the latest, AI models using, well, the internet to train their models and anything that is available there. And then pointing to a lack of regulation as the reason for just doing whatever the hell they want. And lastly, also worth mentioning, currently, data centers alone are consuming the equivalent of a top 10 energy-consuming country worldwide. And one of the worst parts about it is that many of the people in societies that are paying the price for this already don't live close to us in this room. And the places where the brunt force of our vast environmental impact is already happening aren't far away from here. We're shielded, we're very privileged, many of us, and we're shielded from the impact of our decisions, but that doesn't mean that we're not responsible. So my last recommendation for you is don't believe the hype, but trust the heat. Especially when everyone is saying, everyone is doing this, we should too. Ask, how might this actually help us solve business or customer problems? How short-term versus long-term viable is this? What are privacy, security, or social issues that are connected with it? How could we mitigate the risks? And how much money is this actually worth throwing at? I do, on a last note, want to pull out 2 more comments. We heard from many people who mentioned something like concerns that management will overly rely on the hype, for example, around generative AI. Who is management? Someone else mentioned concerns about friction with top management, as they will expect everything to be delivered even faster. I've run these speed coaching sessions, I think this is the 5th time now at LeadDev, quite a lot. I often get questions about how to become a director, VP, or CTO one day. Many of us in this room might at some point be top management. And we are management already. And yes, it's very understandable, I feel for you and I feel this with you, that to have felt powerless among all of those changes in the industry. But I also know that both of those things are true. And that's why, amid all of those big changes, I also want to remind me and you and all of us that the tech industry isn't just some external force of nature. Every one of us is part of this. Everyone here is the tech industry, because everyone here shapes what good software engineering looks like every day. Working on software in 2024 is more than making designs or typing code into an editor. We're enablers of empowerment, but also enablers for harassment and abuse. We're not neutral, our code is not neutral, and our technology is not neutral. Our work touches on the fundamentals of people's identities and their lives. Software development always has been and still is an act of representation of our users, of their needs, but also of what problems we even consider worth solving. And as leaders, we shape what that representation looks like through how we give and receive feedback, through how we communicate, how we run our meetings, how and what we decide, who we delegate to, whose work we praise, who we hire and who we promote. We also shape this representation through how we handle employee concerns and issues, how we deal with unionization efforts, what user data we collect and how we use it, through how much we race after the next hype, or at least try to understand what user problems we're trying to solve, what ethical considerations we make or ignore in the decisions that we make, and where we intervene or where we choose to look the other way. The industry's been changing, but my, your, and our decisions every day are part of shaping that change. And that's why now, maybe even more than in a really long time, is a time to get clear with yourself on, in this changed technology industry, what kind of leader will you be? Thank you very much for having me.